The hall was full of light, music, and excitement. It was the great bonding ceremony on the alien planet Sephra. Young aliens from different tribes stood proudly, dressed in their finest clothes, above them. Shining blue crystals floated in the air. Glowing whenever a true bond was made, everyone smiled, laughed, and looked forward to their turn. Everyone. Except Riva, she sat at the far end of the room. Away from the others, her dress was old, torn in places. And her right leg was made of dull metal. A prosthetic, stiff and scratched. Her skin was a pale violet color. And scars ran across her arms and face. But the saddest part was not her leg or her scars, was her eyes. They were tired, hollow, used to rejection. No one came near her. When she tried to smile at a boy from the Arvan tribe, he looked away quickly. Another girl giggled and whispered, "Why is that thing here?" Riva heard them, but she stayed quiet. She had heard it all before. Years ago, her father had died in a border war. Her mother was taken by debt collectors. She had been left alone in a shelter, forgotten. And the accident that damaged her leg had happened during a food riot. Since then, no one wanted her. Too poor, too damaged, too strange. She was called unbondable, the worst insult on Sephra. Still, she came to every ceremony, hoping anyone might choose her. But today felt like every other year at the center of the hall. The bonding crystals glowed whenever two souls touched hands and matched. Every time they lit up, the crowd clapped and cheered. Another perfect pair, another strong match. Then, the elder called the final name, Riva of No Household. Stepped forward, the room fell silent. Riva stood slowly, her metal leg clicking on the marble floor. She walked to the front, trembling. Her hands shook as she held out the small crystal token. Waiting for someone to take it, no one moved, not one hand reached out. Her eyes searched the crowd full of hundreds of aliens and a few humans. None looked back at her. People began whispering again. She's still trying. Why does she even come here? She's useless. The elder cleared his throat, already turning to close the ceremony. Then, a voice came from the back, quiet but firm. Wait. Everyone turned, surprised. A young human stepped forward. Wearing a dusty gray technician's jacket, he was not tall, not special-looking. Just a worker who had been helping fix the lights earlier. But his brown eyes were clear, calm, and focused only on her. He walked straight to Riva, stopping a few feet away. "What are you doing?" Someone shouted, "You're not a candidate." "I know," the human replied, "but if no one chooses her, then I will." Riva stared at him, confused, her mouth opened. But no sound came out. The elder frowned. "You're a technician, human, not part of the bonding process. I don't care about your process," the human said. "I care about her." Gasps filled the room. Some laughed, others looked angry. A few were stunned into silence. The human stepped forward again and held out his hand. "My name is Eli, and I'm not perfect," he said softly. "But if you'll have me, I'd like to bond with you." Riva's hand trembled. No one had ever said something like that to her. She looked into his eyes, searching for a lie, a trap, a joke. But there was only honesty, slowly, unsure. Her thin fingers touched his palm. For a second, nothing happened. Then the bonding crystal in her hand glowed a soft, warm blue light, stronger than any glow seen that day. The hall went silent, breathless, frozen. The elder stared, shocked. The crowd stared too. Riva looked down at her glowing hand, and for the first time in years, she smiled just a little, and the human smiled back, holding her hand tight as if to say, "You're not alone anymore." The glow from the bonding crystal still floated gently in the air. A blue warmth, calm and beautiful, surrounded Riva and Eli as they stood hand in hand. But the silence in the hall was not deceit, was shock. A deep voice suddenly cut through the stillness. "This is unacceptable," said one of the council elders. His tone sharp. "This human has no rank, no house, and no right to bond." Eli didn't let go of Riva's hand. He looked up, steady. "I don't care about your ranks or rules. I care about her." Gasps echoed again. Riva stood frozen, still unsure if this was real. Her body told her to pull away to protect herself before it turned into a joke. But her heart? It whispered, "Stay." Another elder stood up, older. "With silver scales on her skin, the bonding ceremony is sacred," she said. "Only those approved may form links." And yet, Eli answered, nodding at the glowing crystal, "It chose us." Whispers turned into arguments. Some aliens shouted that this was a disgrace. Others murmured that the bond had never lit up for Riva before perhaps it meant something. The crowd began to split, unsure which side was right. Human sympathy isn't the same as true bonding. One voice yelled, "He just pities her." Another sneered. "That's not love. She's still useless," someone else muttered. "A broken girl with a broken leg." Those words made Riva flinch. She had heard them her whole life. But when she tried to step back, Eli gently tightened his grip. He looked at her not with pity, but strength. "I didn't choose you because I feel sorry for you," he said quietly. "I chose you because I see you. You don't need to prove anything to anyone." Riva blinked fast. Her throat dry. She had waited years to hear something like that. And it had come. From a human she didn't even know yesterday. The elder council whispered among themselves. Finally, the lead elder slammed his staff down. The sound echoing like thunder. "Enough," he declared. "Take them to the verification room. We will see if this bond is real or a trick." Two armored guards stepped forward. Riva hesitated, unsure what to do. Eli nodded calmly and said, "Let's go," as they followed the guards through a side door. Riva noticed something behind the crowd in the back of the room. Several younger aliens watched with wide eyes. None of them had bonded either. They looked like her, nervous, quiet, forgotten. But now their eyes weren't full of fear. They were full of hope. The verification room was cold and quiet. Machines hummed softly on every side. One device scanned their nervous systems, checking pulse, brainwaves, and emotional patterns. Another examined the bond crystal, analyzing the glow. A tall medical droid hovered near them, blinking. "You may sit," it said in a flat tone. Riva sat on the edge of the bench, shaking. "You don't have to be afraid," Eli said gently. "They can't erase what happened back there, but what if it was a mistake?" She whispered. "What if the bond was just a glitch?" Eli shook his head. "It wasn't. I felt it," he said, placing his hand over his heart. "And I know you did too." The droid returned with its report. "Bonding confirmed," it said. "Emotional signatures show alignment at 91% compatibility." The Elder Council stared at the result. Baffled? Impossible. One whispered. "The girl never reached more than 8% before." Another frowned. "It must be the humans' interference." The lead elder looked down at Riva. "Explain yourself," he demanded. "Why did the bond activate only now?" Riva opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Her throat was tight, her hands cold. Then Eli stepped beside her. "Maybe," he said. It wasn't about rules or systems. Maybe she just needed someone to see her. Someone who didn't judge. The room fell silent. The elders said nothing. The machines beeped quietly, as if agreeing. That night, they were sent to separate rooms. Riva couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, wondering if Eli would be sent away. Would they cancel the bond? Would they hurt him for choosing her? Suddenly, there was a soft knock at her door. It opened slightly, and Eli peeked in. "I snuck away from the guest room," he whispered. "Couldn't sleep." Riva smiled for the first time, really smiled. He sat on the floor beside her bed, leaning against the wall. "I meant what I said," he whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." And in that quiet moment, as stars blinked outside her small window for the first time in her life, Riva didn't feel like an outcast. She felt chosen. Hook ending, but deep in the council's chamber. Red lights blinked on a secret monitor. A shadowed figure leaned forward and said, "That human is a threat to the old ways. Remove him." The next morning, the sun didn't rise for Riva. Not because of weather, but because of what happened at dawn. Loud footsteps echoed in the hallway. Doors opened with force. Voices shouted in formal tones. Riva was still rubbing her eyes when two armored guards stormed into her room. "Riva, of no household," one said coldly. "You are being transferred for bond analysis?" She froze, heart racing. "Why?" "I already passed the verification. New orders from the High Council," the guard snapped. "Follow now." They grabbed her by the arm. Her mechanical leg thudded on the floor as she was dragged into a white hallway. No one explained anything. No one even looked her in the eyes. Meanwhile, Eli was sitting on the guest room floor. Still half asleep, he woke to silence. No knock. No breakfast, no sign of Riva. He asked a nearby droid where she was. "She has been taken to the isolation unit," it answered flatly, "for extended testing." "What?" Eli stood up, shocked. "No one told me. You are not her family," the droid replied. "You are just the initiator of the bond." Eli clenched his fists. Just the initiator. That girl was his partner. She finally smiled yesterday for the first time, and now they locked her away again. The isolation unit was a quiet building hidden behind the council towers. No windows, no colors. Only cold walls and silent machines inside. Riva sat in a small room with glass walls. A bright light shone above her head, hurting her eyes. Electrodes were attached to her temple, her wrist, her chest. Every beep from the machines made her flinch. She wasn't allowed to speak. Wasn't allowed to move without permission. Her leg had been removed. They said it interfered with the scans. But she knew the truth. They didn't trust her. They still thought she wasn't good enough. Tears formed in the corners of her eyes. But she blinked them away. She had cried enough in her life. Back at the main building, Eli didn't wait. He stormed through the halls, past guards, past droids. Until he reached the council chamber. "I demand to see Riva," he shouted. "She is under review," said the elder calmly. "Do not interfere. She's not a criminal." Eli replied. "She passed your tests, remember?" "She is." "Unstable," the elder replied, "and your involvement makes things worse." "Worse for who?" Eli asked, stepping closer. "For her. Or for your outdated rules." The elder's eyes turned cold. "If you break any more rules, human, we will send you back to your planet." Eli didn't answer. He turned and walked away, but not back to his room. He walked to the service area. Then down a hallway where engineers stored blueprints and vent maps. Hours later, a technician found a panel open behind the garden wall. Wires had been rerouted. And one of the old underground access tunnels had been unlocked that night. Riva sat on the floor of her glass room, shivering. She missed her leg. It made her feel strong. She missed Eli's voice. It made her feel real. She had no blanket, just cold metal beneath her. Then, a sound, soft, like a faint knock on the back wall. She turned quickly, crawling across the floor. Tap, 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 tap. She recognized that rhythm. It was the knock Eli used when he first visited her guest room. Was she dreaming? The panel behind her bed shifted slightly, and then Eli's face peeked through the small opening, covered in dust, hair messy, smile wide. "Hey," he whispered. "Miss me?" Riva crawled forward, eyes wide. "Eli." "How did you know time?" he said, cutting her free from the wires. "We're getting out of here." They moved through the narrow maintenance tunnel. It smelled like rust and old oil. Eli helped Riva walk, supporting her weight since she had no leg. "You risked everything to find me," she whispered. "I told you I wouldn't leave you," he replied. "You mattered to me." They reached a hatch that opened into the back alley of the marketplace. Riva took a deep breath, real air, fresh and full of noise. Her skin tingled from the sudden freedom. But as they stepped out, a silent drone above blinked red, tracking them, recording them, hook-ending in a hidden room inside the council tower. The shadowed figure watched the escape footage. His voice was cold. "Prepare the enforcers and terminate the bond." Riva leaned against Eli as they moved through the back alley. Every step was hard without her mechanical leg, but she didn't complain. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. Eli tightened the straps on the makeshift sling he had wrapped around her waist. It helped support her weight. But not for long. They had to move faster. Guards would come soon. And the drone that spotted them had surely sent a signal already. "This way," Eli whispered, pulling her toward an old maintenance shaft near the trash chute. The tunnel was narrow, wet, and smelled of rot and chemicals. Riva hesitated at the entrance. "You trust me?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "With everything," she whispered. Inside the tunnel, the light quickly disappeared. Eli switched on a small hand lamp he had taken from the engineering room. The walls were covered in grime and moss. Water dripped from above, making the floor slick. "I didn't even know these tunnels existed," Riva said softly. "I studied the maintenance maps last night," Eli replied. "Every palace hides its dirt somewhere." She almost laughed. "Then I belong here." "No," Eli said gently. "This place is lucky you're passing through." Behind them, metal boots hit the alley pavement. 3 enforcers arrived, cloaked in black armor, scanning for life signs. "Target is warm," one said, pointing to the tunnel. "Proceed," the leader ordered, drawing a pulse rifle inside the tunnel. Eli heard a faint echo. "They're here," he whispered. Riva looked at him, fear rising again. "We won't make it," she said. "I'm slowing you down. You're the reason I'm running," Eli replied, lifting her into his arms. "I'll carry you if I have to." The water reached their knees as they moved deeper. The tunnel split into 3 paths. Eli paused, remembering the map. "Left," he said, "leads to the old scrapyard," but just as they turned, a beam of red light flashed behind them. A warning shot sizzled against the tunnel wall. "Stop." The enforcer yelled, "Return the asset or be neutralized." Eli ducked into the left path. Slipping on the wet ground, he nearly fell, but kept Riva safe in his arms. She gripped his shoulder, eyes wide. "You're crazy," she whispered. "You're worth it," he whispered back. The tunnel narrowed again, then opened into a dark chamber. Old parts, broken machines, and rusty scrap lay piled high. "This is the scrapyard," Eli said, setting her down gently. He found a thin steel rod and placed it under her arm. "A temporary leg," he smiled. "Not perfect, but better than nothing." Riva balanced herself slowly. "Surprised it worked. Why are you doing this for me?" she asked. "No one else ever did," Eli replied. "And I think the galaxy's tired of that." They climbed up a ladder to the surface hatch. Eli peeked out. It was night now, stars glittering above a junk-covered plain. "Coast is clear," he said. "Let's move." Suddenly, a voice echoed from a hidden speaker. "This is Council Command," it warned. "The human known as Eli is to be detained. The bonded female subject must be returned for deactivation." Riva's hands trembled. "They want to shut me down." "You're not a machine," Eli said. "You're not a subject, not an object. You're alive. And they're afraid of that." They ran into the junk maze, hiding behind piles of broken transport pods and shattered droids. But the enforcers were close, red lights sweeping across the metal plains. Riva spotted something in the distance, an old cargo lift. "Eli, that lift used to go to the outer district," she said. "If we can restart it, we can disappear." Eli nodded. "You still remember this place better than I do." They made it to the control box. The wires were half cut and the panel was rusted. But Eli pulled tools from his belt and got to work. "Keep watch," he said. "I'll get this running behind them." Footsteps approached. Riva crouched, holding a sharp metal rod like a spear. Her balance was shaky, but her heart was strong. For the first time, she was ready to fight. The enforcer came around the corner, raising his weapon before he could fire. Riva hurled the rod like a javelin. It struck his arm, making him drop the rifle. "Nice throw," Eli said without looking up. "Got it?" He shouted, hitting the final switch. The cargo lift roared to life, shaking as dust flew off the old frame. Riva climbed on, Eli beside her. The platform rose, creaking loudly as it moved toward the shadows of the outer district. They looked down as the enforcers became smaller. But one aimed a final shot. The pulse beam fire Dreve screamed, but Eli shielded her with his body. The blast hit his shoulder, burning through fabric and skin. He fell back, groaning. "Eli," she cried, catching him. "I'm okay," he whispered, blood dripping. "Just don't let go." Hook ending as the lift disappeared into the night sky, far away from the council's reach. A quiet message played from a hidden device Eli had stolen. "To the ones who were never chosen, your time is coming." The cargo lift clanked to a stop in the shadows of the outer district. Dust and silence filled the air. Eli was breathing hard, clutching his burned shoulder. Riva held him steady, her hands shaking. The outer district was where forgotten machines and forgotten people lived. Tall buildings stood like skeletons. Broken lights flickered above cracked roads. No patrols came here. No laws were followed. It was the one place where Riva and Eli could disappear. They were lucky. She helped him into a ruined shelter built from scrap metal and old shipping crates. Inside, it was dark and quiet, but dry. Eli slumped against the wall, face pale. "You need help," Riva whispered. "I need you," Eli said, smiling faintly. "You're the only one I trust." Riva opened a small med kit he carried. Her hands weren't trained. But she worked carefully. She cleaned the wound, wrapped it tightly, and cooled it with gel. Eli groaned but didn't pull away. "Thank you," he whispered. "You've saved me twice now. I'm just repaying the bond," she said, but her eyes filled with worry. They both knew this wasn't over. Back at the council tower, alarms buzzed. The elder council stood around a large screen. The shadowed figure from before stepped forward. "Enough," he said, his voice sharp like a blade. "The bond is corrupt, but the test said it was real." Another elder replied nervously. "It's a bond built on rebellion," the figure said. "And rebellion is contagious." He pointed to images of other outcast aliens, those who had never bonded. Now they were gathering near the edges of the palace, watching, whispering, daring to believe. "End this," the shadowed figure ordered. "I want that human gone." And the girl erased from record. A red message flashed on the council wall. "Purge protocol initiated." Riva stared out from the broken shelter. She could see parts of the city glowing in the distance. But she also saw something else: movement. Figures, small and quiet, began to appear. Young aliens, outcasts. All different colors and shapes, they peeked from behind ruins. One girl with no arms, one boy with burned skin. Another with 3 eyes but no voice. They all had something in common: they were like her. Unwanted, forgotten, labeled unbondable, and now they were looking at her. "Is it true?" One asked softly, "Did the bond really glow for you?" Riva stood slowly, leaning on a pipe. "Yes," she said. "It glowed brighter than ever before, but I'm not special," she added. "I'm just someone who was seen. Can "Can we be seen too?" another child asked. Riva smiled. "Yes, and I'll make sure of it, inside the shelter." Eli was awake again. He heard the voices outside. "You've started something," he whispered as she entered. "They're coming out." "Because of you. They're coming because of us," she replied, kneeling beside him. The bond gave them hope. Eli nodded, weak but proud. "But hope won't protect them from the council," he said. "They'll strike soon." Riva's face turned serious. "Then we need to speak before they do," she said. To the whole city, Eli pulled out a small data disk from his jacket. "I stole this before they caught you," he said. "It's the emergency broadcast key." Riva looked at it, her eyes wide. "This can send a message across the entire planet." "Yes," Eli said. "But they'll trace it fast, so it has to count. You only get one chance." Riva nodded. "I'll use it," she said, "and I won't waste it." That night, as stars shone above the ruined city, a screen flickered on across every district. Every home, every council hall, even in the chambers of the elders. It appeared without warning. On the screen stood Riva, standing tall despite her missing leg. Behind her were the outcasts, silent but strong, and beside her, though wounded, sat Eli, smiling faintly. "My name is Riva," she began. "I was told I was nothing too poor, too broken, too different to bond, but I bonded," she said. Her voice growing stronger, "Not because I was fixed, but because someone chose to see me." She looked straight into the camera. "And now I choose to see you, to every outcast. To every soul who is told they are worthless, you are not. To the ones locked out of the system. Pushed into the dirt soup belong here, we all do." The screen flickered for a second as the council tried to block it. But the signal held. "Don't let them erase you," Riva said. "If one bond can break their rules, imagine what many can do." The screen went black. In the council tower, the elders shouted in panic. The shadowed figure turned slowly. "Then we'll erase them all," he growled. "Prepare the purge teams. Start with the outer district, hook ending," as boots began to march toward the outskirts. Riva turned to Eli and whispered, "Now we fight for more than us. We fight for everyone who is never chosen." The sky over the outer district turned dark, not from clouds, but from shadows. Large council drones hovered above, scanning with red beams. Marching boots echoed in the distance. Growing louder with every second, Riva stood outside the shelter, watching them come, her fists clenched, her breath steady. She had never fought before, never even shouted in public. But now, the whole world had heard her voice and the council was coming to silence it. Behind her, Eli sat inside, trying to rest. His shoulder wound was healing slowly, but his body was still weak. He wanted to fight too, but Riva had told him to save his strength. "You already gave me the spark," she had whispered. "Now let me light the fire." Around the ruins, outcasts gathered, dozens, then hundreds, young and old. Missing limbs, covered in scars, some born with strange features. All the ones society had ignored now stood side by side. They had no weapons, no armor. But they had something more powerful, a reason. For the first time, they felt seen, felt worthy. And they weren't going to give that up without standing tall. "Are you afraid?" one small girl asked Riva. Riva looked down at her, then smiled. "Yes," she admitted. "But I'm more afraid of going back to being invisible." The girl nodded, holding Riva's hand tightly as the council forces approached the outer edge. A large transport hover dropped down. Out stepped a commander in gold-trimmed armor, his face hidden behind a polished mask. Behind him marched rows of black-clad enforcers with energy rifles. One of them held a holly screen with Riva's face on it, blinking red. "Target located," said a soldier. "Orders." "Take her alive," the commander replied coldly. "Eliminates resistance." They began to move. But just as they entered the ruins, they stopped. In front of them stood Riva, alone, standing at the top of a scrap pile like a queen of rust. Her leg was gone, replaced by a thick metal rod. But she stood tall. "I am not a target," she called out, her voice echoing. "I am a person, and I will not run again." Behind her, hundreds of outcasts began stepping forward. One by one, row by row. They didn't yell, didn't charge. They simply stood with heads held high and eyes full of fire. The commander raised a hand, unsure. This wasn't a battlefield. This was something different. This was a wall of courage. He activated his communicator. "We have a crowd," he said. "There? Not moving, just watching. Proceed with termination," came the council's order. "Do not let them inspire others." Back inside the shelter, Eli forced himself to stand. He held a small device in his hand, the final signal key. It could trigger the old tower's speakers across the capital. It was risky, but he knew what Riva had started needed more than one voice. He pressed the key all over the planet. Speakers clicked on again, but this time it wasn't a speech. It was a heartbeat, Riva's heartbeat, recorded when she bonded with Eli. The signal was pure, slow, and steady, a rhythm of life, a reminder. People across cities stopped what they were doing. Even within the council chambers, the soft pulse echoed from hidden speakers. No one could shut it off back in the ruins. Riva placed a hand over her heart as the beat played around her. Then she spoke again, her voice trembling but firm. "This is what they fear," she said. "Not weapons, not power, not war. They fear someone like me." Being heard, a few enforcers lowered their weapons slightly. One even stepped back. Confused, the commander shouted, "Hold your lines." But his voice was weak, now small, because in the silence that followed, everyone heard the heartbeat, a simple sound. Yet it carried more power than any command. In the capital's center, people began to gather in the streets. They remembered the girl on the screen. They remembered the glow of the bond crystal, and now they were listening. Whispers turned to words. Words turned to chants. "Let her speak. Let her live. Let us choose." The commander in the ruins watched his scanner. It blinked with one word. Public sentiment shift. Dangerous. He looked at Riva, then at the crowd behind her. Then he touched his communicator again. "We need new orders," he said quietly. "They're not afraid anymore." Back at the council tower, the shadowed figure watched, furious. "This girl will burn everything we built," he growled. But the elders around him didn't speak. Some looked down, ashamed. Some looked inspired, hook ending. Eli stepped into the light beside Riva. Leaning on her shoulder, "They can silence a rebel," he whispered, "but not a heartbeat." And Riva smiled, because she knew her voice had reached the galaxy. The sun rose slowly over the ruins of the outer district. Its golden light touched broken rooftops and cracked walls. But that morning, the broken city looked beautiful. Because something had changed, Riva stood with Eli at the top of a scrap tower. Below them, hundreds of outcasts looked up waiting. Across the skies, drones hovered silently. No longer armed, no longer hunting. They were recording, now broadcasting everything to the galaxy. The Council's army had not returned after yesterday's stand. After the heartbeat signal reached billions, orders were frozen, troops stopped moving. Even the elders were silent, unsure what to do. In the center of the council chamber, the High Elder stood alone. The shadowed figure from before was gone, disgraced and dismissed. The other elders no longer followed fear. Instead, they watched the screens where Riva's image glowed. A girl with no leg, no family, no status set. The whole galaxy listened to her now. "We must respond," one elder said. "We must crush this rebellion," said another, still loyal to the old ways. But the High Elder raised a hand and whispered, "No. We must listen." Back in the ruins, Eli touched his wrapped shoulder and looked at Riva. "You've started all this with one choice," he said softly. "You saw me when no one else did," Riva replied. "Now I want the world to see the rest." The outcasts around her were already changing. One boy with fused legs was building a walker from scrap. A blind girl was helping others with sound-based maps. Even the smallest child, born without arms, was drawing with her mouth. Hope was not just a feeling anymore, it was action. Suddenly, a blue light shimmered in the sky. A council transport hovered above the ruins. But this time, it carried no weapons, only one passenger young ambassador. Dressed in white, the transport landed. And the ambassador stepped forward. He held no guards, no drones. Just a scroll of glowing data in his hands. "I am not here to fight," he said, raising his voice. "I bring a message from the High Council." Riva stepped forward. Heart pounding, the whole crowd waited silently. The ambassador unrolled the scroll. In response to the will of the people, he began. "The council hereby recognizes the legitimacy of Riva's bond with the human Eli. Furthermore, the council acknowledges that the bonding system is flawed and must be reformed, effective immediately. All citizens, regardless of wealth, appearance, or physical condition, have the right to be seen, heard, and bonded." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Some cried, some laughed, some just stood frozen in disbelief. Riva's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Eli, unable to speak. "You did it," he whispered. "No," she said, smiling. "We did it." The ambassador handed her a small crystal, new and glowing. "This is yours now," he said. "The first free bond of the new age." Riva held the crystal, watching it glow bright blue in her palm. But then she turned and held it out to a small alien girl with twisted feet and broken arms. "Here," Riva said gently. "This bond belongs to all of us." The girl touched the crystal. And for the first time, it pulsed twice. Once for Riva, once for her. Everyone watched, stunned. As the crystal responded to shared hope, not blood, not power, just belief. Days passed, and everything began to shift. The bonding ceremonies were reopened, but now, no one was left out. Outcasts, former slaves, disabled aliens, humans, they all had a place now. Riva and Eli helped design the first open bonding center. It had no guards, no elite gates. Just one message carved above the door. "You matter." People from every planet came to visit. Children who were once called useless became inventors. Teachers, protectors, some even joined the council itself. Because the galaxy had changed, it would never go back. One evening, Riva sat on a metal bench. Watching the stars, Eli joined her, 2 steaming cups in his hands. "You think they'll remember us in 100 years?" he asked with a grin. Riva chuckled. "If they don't, I'll remind them." She looked down at her new leg, custom built. Sleek, strong. Then at her hands, one shaking, now steady. "I used to wonder if anyone would ever choose me," she whispered. "I used to wonder if I was broken, but now I know I was never broken." Eli nodded. Leaning against her shoulder, "You were always waiting for the right moment," he said. "The moment you'd change the galaxy," final hook ending, as stars shone above and the city glowed below. The girl who was once called useless became a symbol of unity. Not because she was perfect, but because one human saw her worth. And because of one bond, the galaxy found its heart again.